If the meeting is beginning, can the mic please be unmuted?
Yes,
Thank you.
you hear it now.
How's the sound now?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, so just wanted to give you guys an update on ECBG as well. So as you guys saw in my email, or I sent an email to the board a couple weeks ago, so SCAD was our partner for the weatherization portion of ECBG. They did pull out. They no longer wanted to continue for their own kind of, I think I explained it in the email a little bit, but they were just kind of concerned with everything going on and with the administrative burden, I think. So they just decided not to move forward with us. So we do currently have an RFP open to find a new partner for that. We did send it out to a few nonprofits that we knew and we kind of work with, but it is open to anybody. And I sent you guys the link. So if you have any contacts that you'd like to send it to, feel free. But yes, that will close on August 8th. So hopefully we'll find someone else to do the same work. So the scope of the work has not changed. We're still going to target low-income residents and
Renters.
yes, low-income
Okay.
residents. Yes,
That was the
including
main thing for
homeowners.
me. I wanted to make sure it covered renters.
Yes, so we'll keep you guys updated as that process continues, but like I said, it's open until August 8th. We did receive some questions about it, so we're able to answer that, and we're gonna send out an addendum this week, so it looks like people are looking at it.
Okay, that's good.
On another note, so Sophie, our fellow, she was supposed to get just a 12-month fellowship with us, so that would end in September. Thankfully, she was able to get an extension, so she would be with us through February, helping us continue administer ECBG. So we're very happy about that. I did also want to let you guys know that I am interim special projects coordinator, so I'm going to be taking on a few other tasks. I will continue helping with SIB and being the liaison for SIB until I go on maternity leave. But just to let you guys know, so if you have any questions on drought or anything, I am kind of taking over some of that. So that's going to be kind of a new portion of my position for the meantime.
So you will be now in air quality and special projects?
Yes, I will still, I will still do
What
my
are the
air
special projects like? What?
So right now, kind of like drought workshop things. We do emergency response, recruitment and retention. There's a few other things in there that I'm forgetting, but those are what I've been working on today. So that was top of mind.
It's one woman wrecking crew. The fixer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So if any questions about that come up, I'm now your go-to person. If you have anyone who has questions for Public Works, I do also handle the contact PWU email. So all those will be coming. And I think that was all the staff announcements I had. All right, moving on to board updates. I do want to let you guys know that we do have kind of a full agenda today. So just keep that in mind as we're continuing on. But Ben, I will start with you if you have an update from Transit.
Sure, transit. The big thing is the queue. Currently, it can't be funded to the service level it's running currently. And so we had a deep discussion and gave options to Director Feist of our preferences for both reduction of service and also seeking out funding opportunities to continue expanding that baseline level of
So is
service.
this federal funds we've lost? Is that it?
No, the queue was subsidized by downtown businesses.
Oh,
Yeah, for a long time. And for whatever reason, they have stopped. And so there's a gap in funding. Because it's a free service, it doesn't bring in any fare revenue. So it's like, do we decide to keep this and not fund other things? Or it's just challenging. So that's the big thing in transit.
but the queue is just regular buses. I mean, they're wrapped.
Yeah, they're
They're
wrapped.
smaller though,
They're
right?
wrapped. They're all electric. They're the electric buses.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So, but they're the big buses or they're like smaller?
big ones.
The big ones? Oh,
Yeah, they're the big electric ones.
yeah. So now there's just running queue. It's not doing regular routes.
Well, it gets complicated. You can watch the meeting.
Oh, God.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Ben.
Yep.
Nathan, did you have anything?
Parks and Rec, you stole my thunder with tree planting is about to start again.
Yay.
Another side note that we had in that meeting, we had a Eagle Scout update to nature and conservation trail inside of Wichita for one of their Eagle projects.
Hmm.
And then
Where
there's
is that?
South Lakes.
Oh, not like the
Campus
baseball
high
field
school.
area. Yeah, okay.
And then because it fits in with water conservation and water management, there's another scout in our city that's going for a National Conservation Award, addressing watershed quality and water flow.
Okay. So it's not a study, he's actually gonna do something?
He's applied for grants and he has to do 2 large projects with public education.
Wow. That's impressive.
Thank you. Elizabeth, I know Mary's Youth Council is kind of out, so I didn't know if you had an update for us
Yeah.
today.
We just finished conducting our interviews and we should have our people soon, so I'm excited.
Oh, awesome.
Good.
Okay.
Cindy, did you have anything from the planning commission? Okay, thank you.
So what happens to the number of people on this board since there is no diversity and inclusion board anymore?
So as of right now, they have just been, they're kind of not gonna work, from my understanding, is they've been kind of put on pause. I don't know that the board has been dismantled yet. I'm still waiting on live email law to see kind of how that's gonna work out. If we're gonna swap it off for another member, another
Another
seat,
board?
another board seat, or how that's going to work. But I'm still waiting on to see where that lands.
Yeah.
Okay, Ibrahim, did you have any updates?
Yes, let me share my screen. I will make it short and sweet.
Awesome.
Can you allow me to? Okay, thank you. So my key updates for this month is mainly about learning opportunity. So my learning opportunity for this month is mainly about harvesting water from the air. So usually we are talking about water or wastewater treatment. People usually talking about surface water, river and lakes or groundwater, but usually we have unconventional water sources. And one of the unconventional water sources is the water vapor with the air. So the air has the capability to carry water vapor, and it has the capacity to go up to 4% of its volume. So 4% is a significant amount of water vapor in the air. And some people, they may don't have access, like surface water, lakes or rivers, or remote areas, or don't have access to underground. So the concept is all the concept, and the all the concept coming, as you can see from the right side of my slide, using this special, or not special, kind of wire cloth mesh. So when you have a water vapor, it can get out from the air through condensation. So if you have a surface to get in touch with the air, it starts to condense and getting out. The system is simple, it doesn't require pumping or pipelines, and it's just to get the water with high quality. You can use it for your potable or non-potable water applications. For every 1 cubic meter of the air, you can get around 17 grams, but you have significant amount of water within the air. Some states like Arizona, they start to invest in the water harvesting from the air. There is a school, Arizona State University. I know some key players over there. They start to invest in this area. And also researchers start to work on this. So the concept you see here is based on condensation concept. But there is like one of the players is called air rule. So the air rule, they have a special design for harvesting water from the air. It's not based on the condensation, based on using special materials called MOF, a metallic organic frameworks. You look to this material as an absorbent material, like a solid material. Air coming in with the water vapor, get in touch. This material is selective, takes the water vapor, let the air goes out. And after that, this material has a capacity in terms of absorbing water. And over time, you need to stop and they make kind of regeneration. So you have usually 2 cycles. One cycle harvesting water, the other cycle is regenerating the water or regenerating the runoff by heating or by using vacuum. But the concept here is based on the vacuum. When you start to lower the pressure, the water liquid start to leave the air. I know we are in good shape for the water this year in Chin Reservoir, but why I'm sharing is that I'm trying to have everything documented, not for this year, maybe for future years, maybe we not need it, but at least for our updates, meeting minutes or something in the city, we may go to unconventional water sources like this or that. So this is the point. So I'm trying every month to share like 1-2 minutes about something like that, waste reduction, water sources and stuff like this, to advance the knowledge. And if something interested, we may get more, but just as a learning opportunity. Any questions for this item?
Is it commercialized?
Right now, so when we talk about technologies, we have something called TRL, technology readiness level. So this one in TRL 9 or 8, so meaning is one step from commercialization. but it has this 20 feet shipping container, is ready to deploy in remote areas, but it's very close to commercialization. But if you go to the air jewel, I'm not marketing this one, but just one of the players, you can see the size, but it's like they have like different products of 20 feet shipping container, 40 feet, and they can get significant amount of water out of that, especially in remote areas when you don't have infrastructure or centralized water treatment, no pumps or pipelines. Any more questions?
Can we build like a wall of this that surrounds wherever the wind is coming from so we can drop the humidity in town when it gets really hot and it's like sticky?
Yeah, the answer yes. The answer yes. The
Okay.
answer yes. Is you have a foggy, something like this, like in this, if you search this as a wire closed mesh for water harvesting,
Yeah, I've seen that.
they will do that. And it's very simple. I call it passive system. There's
Yeah.
no pumping or any
Yeah.
power to wash the water to treat it, right?
Yeah.
If you have like RO, you have to go to a certain pressure
Mhm.
to force it through the
Right,
RO.
right.
And you have to take care of the
Yeah.
pre-treatment.
This is passive.
Yeah,
I
but
know.
the difference here is the outcome is not like RO, you know, like you get like low production of water. Yeah. So this is my update for this month. I believe the next item is mainly about the meeting minutes. So Liz, she did a great job to share that in advance, and we, all of us should receive this meeting minutes. So any comments, feedback? Did we miss something? And we had a big discussion last month about how we can invest this $100,000, right? So, yeah, any comments?
Looked good to
Didn't
me.
notice anything.
Okay.
Okay, I move to accept the minutes
Thank you.
printed.
I second the motion.
For those in approving of the meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Anyone against that or doesn't agree with us? Going once, going twice. Okay, so I'm going to approve the meeting minutes for June 2025. So now let's go to the main items for this meeting. So,
Yeah.
are you ready?
Yeah,
So-
thank you, Ibrahim.
Mhm.
So as you guys remember last, couple meetings, we talked about what to use the $40,000 for projects. So I'm gonna get into kind of descriptions of scope that city staff came up with for each one. I did want to start off though, Russell said he was not gonna be able to be here today, so he did make a statement about where he lands. You are not able to vote, like proxy vote outside of the meeting, so, he just wanted to kind of send his statement, so I'll read that now. Assuming research has been done to determine the relative ease or difficulty that might be involved in small groups or individuals pursuing micro grants for various sustainability projects, and assuming the research leads the board to conclude that such micro grants really are a viable option that need to be made available to Wichita citizens and organization, then I support and would agree the board to vote in support of the original Plan A, with $10,000 being split between the four, or I'm assuming he means 10,000 being split, each getting the four options which have been presented to us. If, however, the board decides after looking at the research, the odds of any independent person or group being able to manage the grant application process are low, then I support and would encourage the board to vote in support of Plan B, which is to split the 40,000 primarily between air quality monitors and waste reduction options at about 15,000 each, with 10,000 being dedicated to the educational materials. So with that, I will go ahead and go into the first project, which is the air quality monitors. So the kind of scope we came up with is a phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 of this project would target all 5 of the public libraries and 3 neighborhood resource centers. And then phase 2 of this project would target 11 USC 259 schools, particularly those with playgrounds and outdoor recess times. So this budget, what I've estimated would come up to the full $10,000. So with the purple air outdoor monitors would be 300 monitors. Or $300 per monitor, and then the outdoor power supply of $45. And so the total cost and power supplies would be about $8,000, estimating about $400 with, taxes and fees. And so this would get us, if I remember correctly, 20 monitors is what I set for the budget. And then that leaves an extra 2,000 for signage and educational materials. So just making sure people are aware that those monitors are there. And I've gone a little bit more into detail in this packet that I sent to you guys, that's also available at the front of the table as well. Before I move on to the next project, are there any questions on the air quality monitors?
Was that the most cost effective one? I know you were gonna see.
Yes, just because it does only measure PM 2.5. Some of the other ones that measured other things like ozone were significantly more expensive, and with $10,000, you'd only be able to get a few.
Another question, like, is there an installation cost for this one? Like, who will be in charge for installation for the sensor and wiring?
No, because it's just a plugin. So assuming that the infrastructure is already in place, which we're targeting places that do have the infrastructure, it's just quite literally a plugin.
Okay.
So how many of these would we actually be able to purchase?
20.
Okay.
Is there an idea to place those around the city? When you start talking about where is our contaminants coming from? We can measure what's coming into the city versus what's going out of the city.
So can you repeat your question? Just
Is
making
there a
sure.
way
that-
to place these basically in a cordon around the city? So we can measure what's coming into the city versus going out? I believe 6 months ago, you had talked about Wichita gets hammered on our air quality,
Yeah.
but it's not always our fault if something's kicking up out of New Mexico and blowing into us.
I'm just not sure there would be a way to be able to tell if it's coming in or going out or just being produced on the site of where you're putting it. And especially with these monitors, we're talking about pretty low cost monitors that are more just to give you real time data and not separate. And we also, when I talked about that specifically that I have is on ozone as well. And so these aren't actually monitoring ozone, they're monitoring PM 2.5. But with this, if we're looking at maybe more high tech ones like the ones KDHE has, maybe we can get that type of information. But even then I'd be skeptical to say that we'd be able to have the actual what's coming in versus what's coming out versus what's being produced on site.
Yeah.
I think the main idea in that is if we put them near playgrounds and like important public places, that it's helpful to people that have issues with air quality.
Exactly. Yeah. Giving them the access to that real-time data that, you know, they might not receive from a KDHE tower that's a few miles away. And then for educational materials, so like we said, this is providing funding for materials, resources, and workshops and potential incentives to encourage sustainable practices. So Ethan worked hard on a proposed budget. So this is kind of what we're looking at right now at currently funding. So we're looking at those compost wheels that we ran out. If you choose to do micro grants, we allocated some funding towards advertising those micro grants, brochures for CIV and Wichita Sustainability 101. So kind of anything that you guys deem you want more educational materials on. So we kind of set that aside for you guys to look at, advertise for CIV and other board / city efforts, recycling guide booklets, at-home composting starter kits, and then we did add weatherization kits as well.
The recycling guides though, can you not get those from Sedgwick County?
So I do use the version they have, but just like having printed
Like
copies,
printing them?
because they've been pretty popular.
So how much you allocating for advertising SIP and other?
That's part of the one right above it.
Oh, okay. Like one of
So
your
it's
goals?
gonna-
Yeah, the bullet
I'll
was-
move it
Okay,
over.
that's okay.
Any other questions? Okay, so food waste reduction. So this would be done in 2 parts. There would be a pilot study led by Suffolk County to review food waste in schools, 2 of each level with help of university students. So food waste and share tables / share fridge usage would be evaluated in 6 schools tentatively in fall of 2025. And then the second part of this would be 6 more fridges will be supplied to other schools following the completion of the study via an application process. So as you can see, we have the tentative timeline there for the first part, and then for the second part, we would be working in conjunction with Sedgwick County on this, so that they would be leading the brunt of kind of weighing the food and looking at how much food waste was reduced, and really working with those schools and then getting university students to help as well. So this would really help us with the administrative burden, while also being able to get the data that we need that we probably wouldn't have been able to do ourselves.
So we are,
Who county does that?
It was Catherine and Susan were the ones who will be working on this one.
Yeah.
The environmental services area.
so we are mainly like providing fridges, right?
Yes.
There is no like packing material for any waste food to collect it or store it. Should we allocate money for that or mainly fridges?
For like the food waste or for your.
Uh-huh.
So as of right now, this is what so the reason this is kind of where this came to is because Sedgwick County has already worked with the schools. And this is what was gonna be least administratively burdensome on the schools as well and teachers. So there wouldn't be having to be someone there to like proctor it.
Sure.
And to make sure that everything was like used correctly, since they have a share table, they're already using kind of a system that, you know, the students are already familiar with, and that doesn't take someone standing there to tell them where to put it.
How much we are allocating money to this one?
Yes, so next slide.
Oh,
So for the budget, these are kind of all the items we budgeted, so, weighing the items, so looking at how much food waste was actually reduced, batteries for the scales, info stickers for the fridges, signs on the fridges, fridges for the first 6 schools, for the pilot schools, and then after the second portion of it, the fridges that would be supplied, and I missed a 0 on the end, so that was my fault. But a total of $8,835. And then there is a second portion to this. So the second portion of this project would provide free composters to registered public community gardens. Gardens will be chosen through an application on a first come first served basis until supplies and funds have been expended. So we're looking at just doing kind of 10 composters. We estimate that would be $100 for a composter. So looking at a budget of about $1,000, leaving us a little bit of wiggle room for either project as well.
very good.
All right, any questions before I move into the last project?
Just what is the selection criteria for the schools?
Yes, so we're actually working with, I want to say it's not the superintendent, but someone who's in charge of all the schools
Okay,
of the
got it.
districts, and so working with them to choose, I guess, who wants to work with
So
us.
you will guide us which
Yes,
school you
yeah, and
need.
giving us permission to be in those schools. I will say Sedgwick County is the one who's working with them and contacting them. Okay, so this is the one that's kind of been developed a little bit more since you guys have last seen it. So as Ibrahim presented the project, it was sustainable microgrants are designed to assist groups and individuals serving the citizens of Wichita and advancing a sustainability related project or goal. The program provides support for groups and individuals in completing a project or event that educates, connects, or otherwise supports local sustainability efforts. So we were able to talk with actually Arts and Culture Division to see how they do their grants, because they do similar grants for artists. And it doesn't sound like it would be an issue with finance. So some of those issues that we were seeing, we were talking about last meeting, don't really apply. We're able to kind of be able to streamline it a little bit simple. It's easier than we thought it would be. So the way we wanted this to work is SIB would set the scope of eligible projects and priority categories. So this might be something within your focus areas that you've already established, like wanting to talk about water conservation, waste reduction. So SIB would help us set those guidelines of what's going to go into the applications, what makes an applicant eligible. And then city staff will open and host online applications. So we're able to use actually, I talked to Jesse Koza, very kind at the, who does the arts grants, and he was able to give me access to where they host their application, so we can build the application there as needed. So we'll host it, we'll open it. And then staff, Ethan and I will review applications to make sure they meet the minimum requirements. So just making sure they meet requirements like, you know, asking for, you know, only $1,000, not $2,000 or something like that. Applicants must serve the citizens of Wichita, and then, you know, just any other eligibility requirements that you guys choose to add in there. But we'll just make sure, so just making sure that they're all even eligible to apply. So once that happens, SIB will then review and score applications. So this is the portion that I want to make sure you guys were aware of. So this would require the board to receive all the applications. Once they are all submitted, we would make sure that they'd at least meet the minimum eligible requirements. And then each of you individually will have access to all the applications and be able to score them based on a rubric that's created. So once that is done, then a closed session meeting will take place for SIB to discuss applications after scoring has ended. And during this time, you would choose the awardees. Awardees will be chosen by SIB during that time. City staff will create an agreement with lawful awardees, send agreements, disperse funding, conduct tracking, and review receipts for expenditures. Awardees will also be required to send a final report to outline their experience and outcomes. So the way that portion happens is usually what happens is I'll send them a template for the invoice. They'll send an invoice for $1,000. I will be able to work with finance to make sure they get their check. And then at the end, they will have to submit receipts to show that the materials and funds expended were used for eligible uses. So it's not how we had originally thought, where it might have to be a reimbursement. They are able to, you know, once they submit that invoice. But the part that will be, like I said, I think the most time consuming will be reviewing and scoring applications, which will be up to the board. So I just want to make you all aware of that as well. Okay, and I think that was it. Did we have any questions on that?
One of the items we discussed about this particular pillar is having kind of a review meeting with them.
Mhm.
Is this still applicable? So whenever they get the money, after that, we'll start to do whatever they propose in the proposal. And we discussed that there is a need for us to have 1 or 2 review meetings, see where they are. So we don't like to give them money and they go, you know, we
Mhm.
need to keep the engagements going on. So this is one of the purposes behind the micro grant, to
Mhm.
keep engage with the community, and in the meantime, track the progress by having 1 meeting at least, right?
Okay, so you want to add that as part of the requirements that
If
they
the
have
board
to-
members okay
We
with
could
that.
If they
them-
just have to come to a SID
Yeah,
meeting and
that's
tell us
fine.
what they did.
Okay.
Oh, exactly,
Yeah.
something like that,
Yeah,
like,
I think that's
Yeah.
reasonable.
like 15 minutes,
I'd
20
say.
minutes, show up what you did.
You know,
Right.
Did you want to make the requirement 1 SID meeting or 2 or?
Okay, once,
once, yeah, it's
Yeah.
recorded.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay. Yeah,
And
just
then
one-
within what time frame? So assuming we say they have to expend the funds by the end of 2026, assuming, you know, whatever
Mhm.
timeline we end up setting for this, just within that timeline or within
I
a
think
couple
that's-
months of starting their project?
I think with just within the
the
timeline, the
timeline,
money
yeah.
has to be
Yeah,
spent.
exactly.
Cause I mean, we'd rather have them represent on, hey, we did
This is
this,
what we
not
did, right.
what we're going to do.
Right.
Exactly, yes.
You
For
know,
90 days after they turn in their receipts.
there we go.
Mhm.
That'd work.
Okay, so even
Okay.
after the timeline.
Well, if we're talking about we want them to present or celebrate their project,
Mhm,
Mhm.
then it has to be after they turned in their receipts.
mhm.
So within 90 days of turning in receipts, come in and give a 3-minute presentation.
Sounds right, yeah, I
Yeah.
like that.
That'd be fun. That would be really fun to hear their
And this
project.
is the purpose behind the micro grants, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
And if it goes well, they have presentations at like the city council meetings, and Mercy's council has done that in the past where we've like gone through with our issue group projects and kind of just showed the city council what we did, and I think that might be good for
I
the
agree,
board.
I agree.
Yes, so if you guys, you know, like the project and think that will be something that you guys are willing to put the time in outside of SID meetings as well, you said we'll also need to set the scope and to just be able to write what examples of eligible request is, what requests are not eligible, and just kind of really set that as well.
I mean, can we crib off what Arts Council has?
No, because those are completely different funds.
Okay.
And for
Yeah,
different
I tried
purposes,
to.
yeah.
Okay, I kind of figured you may have.
When you talk about public events, does it have to be within the city of Wichita boundaries or just open to city of Wichita?
So that was one of the requirements we had on there that applicants must serve citizens of serve citizens of Wichita, up to you if they have to be Wichita residents. But we would like for their activities to be within the city.
So we get to, I guess, we get to decide what that means.
Yes.
What
Mhm.
serve Wichita means.
Yes, and so originally when Ibrahim presented this idea, he said the program provides support for groups and individuals in completing a project or even event that educates, connects, and otherwise supports local sustainability efforts. Or actually, that might have been your portion that you rewrote. But he gave examples, so just writing the scope in a way that makes sense that you could build a rubric off and have criteria. So that was kind of the portion that Ethan and I try and took a stab at, but we don't want to take away from what the intent that you guys had was.
So
The only
giving,
one I would throw out with that is if we're doing something such as showing, I'll use the Scouts Project watershed.
Mm.
There's not a lot of watersheds inside the actual boundary of the city of Wichita. But discussing watershed,
Mhm.
open to the citizens of Wichita, would fall outside that boundary if we said that the project has to happen within the confines of the city. The other one would be, like river cleanup, looking at the pictures on the wall.
Mhm.
It's a whole lot easier to get into the river north of Wichita and prevent pollution
Mhm.
than it is doing stuff inside
Yeah,
confines.
so definitely up to you guys to set kind of what that means and what it means to serve the citizens of Wichita, because if you ask me, if you're cleaning up something that's gonna come downstream, even if the activity doesn't happen within the city of Wichita, it's still affecting and helping out the citizens of Wichita. But that is for you guys to set the scope and think about those instances or what projects people would submit and making sure you're not ruling out projects that you would like.
And that may fall out as a natural consequence of just having what on the rubric is serve the citizens of Wichita, because we all each might have slightly different interpretations of it, but we're all scoring it independently, and so combined together, we probably get a good answer. You know, rather than being too prescriptive on what the rubric is, more general. And
Do
then,
you all have any other examples of like what an eligible project would look like to you all? Cause that's something else I was trying to get is a list of things that could be eligible for this kind of grant.
Could someone apply for this grant to plant trees?
If you would, like, I don't see a reason not to.
Yeah.
so,
Well,
yeah.
you see, I mean, I'm thinking of physical things that could be done as well. Creating a compost
Correct.
facility,
I have
something
the
like
design,
that.
yes.
I mean, it'd have to be small time if it's gonna be only this money, but, you know, getting something started like that. There are lots of organizations now that are working small, but $1,000 grant would be really helpful to them to continue their work.
you know, maybe it's
So-
hey, a group of concerned citizens rents a dumpster. And they just go for a walk in one of the city parks and just picks up everything they can find and then tosses it in the dumpster, and the grant funds the rental dumpster. You know, or something like that, or,
Yeah,
you know, an alley or some, other, place. Because,
alley.
we have plenty of places along the city that could use some cleanup, and it just requires that slight amount of dollars to make that happen.
yeah,
With enough
and that
hands.
wouldn't even be $1,000.
Yeah, so I think the struggles of this, having the examples, but also writing it a way that you don't rule a lot of things out and
Exactly.
defining
It
sustainability
opens the
and
door for any
still,
new ideas for.
and still
Right.
being able to form a criteria that you will all be able to judge every single application on. And that's the part that Ethan and I were kind of struggling, and
Mhm.
that's kind of the hiccup that we see
Sure.
is being able to, sustainability is so broad, so many things, like you just mentioned tree and then you mentioned dumpster, like those are two completely different
Mhm.
areas of
Right.
sustainability. How do you build a criteria and a rubric that will score both of those in the same way?
You build your rubric, so that way you pick 4 main categories. And we say 3, top 3 in each category plus an at will. That way you don't end up with 8 dumpster projects and 2
Mhm.
water projects.
Mhm.
If you want to kind of spread it around as broadly as possible, I would just split everything out into, here's the projects that fit into our 4 categories. Now what's the top 3 in those? Then what's the at will best one out of everything else?
Mhm.
Under my understanding, for our micro grants, we should have like a request for proposal, right? And we should have a meeting open for the public to join us to discuss the request for proposal, having this on the website. And the scope of the micro grants should be within our 2 objectives this year under the water and the waste reduction, right? As I mentioned before, this is the only time we have money, right? So,
Yeah,
yeah, if you're okay with that, right, we can draft 2 pages request for proposal. And we can have a session or a meeting assigned mainly for this particular call. Welcoming publics to come here.
So if you want the city to do that, that's one process with
Oh,
city
different
staff.
process?
Yes, and if
Ah,
you
okay.
as the board want to do that and see
Yeah.
who all applies, that's your process that you guys can work on. But if it's an official city RFP,
Mhm.
or I guess it'd be request more for information than anything, we would put a committee together of city staff that would not be open to board members.
Yeah, that would be what we're trying to avoid.
Okay.
We could, so in the city statute that set up the Sustainability and Great Migration Board, it had like a bulleted list of like things the CIB should focus on, right?
Mhm.
Can that be a rubric? Can we say, does this, how accurately does this project reflect the written purposes of the SIB 1 through 5?
Mhm.
How much does this project impact the citizens of Wichita 1 through 5?
Like a selection criteria, and
Yeah,
someone
and-
meets this minimum requirements.
Right,
You get it, okay.
how well defined is the schedule for this project 1 to 5?
if you're using a Rubik's Cube, like what you're talking about, National Wild Turkey, Pheasants Forever, they do that on their big grants.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Does it meet the needs of the board?
Mhm.
Serve the public?
Correct.
Is it meaningful and can they or is there a belief that they can actually finish it?
Yeah.
So two people say they want a dumpster to go clean up the river. They historically only get 4 volunteers. They're not gonna fill a dumpster.
Mhm.
And the other important criteria are the deliverable items from the proposal, like measurable.
Mhm. Measurable results.
Exactly. Otherwise, we cannot track it. So I believe we have a good idea now how we can structure it, how we can make
Yeah.
selection criteria. And it looks like we're all in favor for this micro grants, like I see energy, so we can make it. So,
Yeah.
okay, that's good.
Yeah, it matches what Russell said,
So,
and even though he's not voting.
So right now we have around 12K for the micro grants, like 12 applications. Like we have like $10,000 for air quality.
Yes,
How
so
much?
it was $10,000 for each, so with the microgrants and the criteria that was originally proposed, it'd be $1,000 grants, so
So
10
okay.
awardees. Mhm.
I suspect we will get more than 100 applications.
I would be shocked because the art one got maybe over 100, but they did a lot of.
Yeah, but we
advertising.
know people. to get
Well,
this.
let me also know that
She will
since you will
be-
be, since you will be
So
scoring
the market
these,
that, right?
just general eligibility, city staff and SIB members cannot apply, family members
Yeah.
cannot apply.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and if you have communication outside of the process with applicants, you should make that known during the scoring.
but I can send them the info.
For sure.
Mhm.
Can advertise all you want.
Oh,
It would just be in best interest to back off, such as if I had any
No
scouts in the
advice. I would
council,
not give any
Right,
advice.
yeah,
I can't score those
Because then that,
because I may know that kid.
Yes.
yeah. Maybe, if you personally know somebody who submits something, be like, not scoring that one.
Would there be any way that like Mayor's Youth Council could apply to it as a group to focus on our issue group projects? Because last year, one of our issue group focuses was sustainability. We could have used that money, I don't wanna say for the fashion show, but for other stuff that our board focused on.
So as of right now, the criteria does allow for individuals and groups to be able to apply. Since it's Mayor's Youth Council for the city, I would have to check. I'm not
Okay.
exactly sure. Cause you are official kind of like. Let me check on that.
Oh, it means that I can't apply for Earth Day next year. I sure would like to have a building instead of trying to do it outdoors.
It's not very earthy.
Yeah. We had to try to do an Earth Day event.
Yeah.
It was,
it was pouring rain, so we
Yeah.
didn't do an Earth Day event
Yeah.
at all.
Okay, it looks like we have a good feedback from city, and Liz, she did a great job, and Jason for clarifying that to us. And we are happy with the micro grants is acceptable by the city, so. Does anyone see any problem with that? Should we move forward?
Do we need an official action?
Do
We already
need
took a
motion for this
vote.
one?
So
What was the vote?
we need to vote on
last time?
Exactly, yeah.
each project.
no, so you can vote for them as a whole.
Okay.
So last time what you guys voted on was basically the 4 projects was your plan A, for $10,000 pending scope. So right now what you're kind of voting on is 1, that you would like to keep micro grants in there, and then 2, that the scope that was chosen for the other projects, except for micro grants, just because you guys are gonna set that, that you guys are in agreement with what we've put forward as city staff.
Mhm.
So like with the air quality, so doing a phase 1 and phase 2, targeting schools, that kind of a thing. For the educational materials, those educational materials that Ethan had suggested. And then for the food waste reduction, working with Sutter County, doing a phase 1, phase 2, targeting 6 schools at first, or not targeting certain schools, and then doing another phase and adding composters onto that. So I would say the motion would have to be to approve funding for all 4 projects at 10,000 each, and then to approve scope proposed by city staff.
So okay, so just to clarify, we're voting on just budget allocation. I know that some of these have proposed timelines and some don't necessarily, like, I mean, just educational materials, and it doesn't really need it, but so there's still more to decide, I guess, on each of these 4 routes that we're not deciding today, just to clarify, but today we're voting on.
Yeah, just so city, so basically, we'll keep you guys updated as we're going and we'll try and meet those, that timeline. But this is basically just allowing us to use that funding and to move forward with those projects. We'll come back to you guys and update you with as things go or as things are being installed or as projects move on. Especially like at the timeline with Sedgwick County that they gave. Does that answer your question?
I think the two things that would be ongoing input from the board especially would be if there's anything in the educational materials that you'd like to see, anything especially related to SIB and that you'd like to see highlighted, and then definitely the micro grants. Those will, I think we'll come back to you before we release the applications for that.
And when you do those applications, I know we all keep saying citizen. Can we say resident?
Resident.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the things we're gonna check on. to
It
make
depends
sure.
on how we can do the funding, because you have to register as a vendor with the city to receive funding. So I'm not sure what all is required to do that. I don't
You
think
just,
it's.
you'd have to, I mean, you would be a resident if you lived in the city limits too. You would still have your address.
Sure, I just don't know the requirements to register as a vendor off the top of my head, just because that's how they have to do it for finance to pay out money.
Yeah.
But we can figure out if that wording in resident is fine, if the wording doesn't impact that aspect.
I think it should be fine. It was just residents.
Can I ask a question? I'm assuming that these are all nonprofit organizations that are applying. It's not like it can't be like a business or.
So as of right now, with the way we did it, we did say, that was one thing that Ethan and I had gone through. Technically, right now, groups and individuals, so it doesn't just have to be nonprofits, so.
Okay.
Ethan's, in Ibrahim's original proposal, I know you mentioned like teachers who want to do a project, so they would be, as of right now, eligible, but it's up to
Workshops and
SIB.
stuff like that.
It's up to SIB to set that criteria and word it in a way that if you want to exclude businesses, but just to make sure to include groups or individuals.
Okay, I'm just thinking of, I work with quite a few neighborhood associations and some of them have 501Cs. Some of them are grassroots organizations. Maybe they're registered with Secretary of State's as a nonprofit, but don't actually have a 501C. So I just didn't know whether they would be eligible if they wanted to do projects in their neighborhood. So
As of right now, and the intent we got from SIB is it would not have to be a registered nonprofit or 501.
okay, very good. Good to know.
That's very good.
The intent
Yes.
needs to be that it's not a profit-making activity.
Yeah.
Or being salaries for someone.
Yeah.
Does that need to be outlined in the criteria, or is that just something we're gonna create? in
We'll
our-
take this in more details.
That's
It's my understanding.
Yeah, that you guys are gonna, so like I said, the scope on the first three are pretty set, and that's kind of what you guys are making sure that you're okay with that. And on this last one, this is the one where you guys are gonna set that, you guys are gonna set the requirements, within city,
Yes.
what the city allows. But you guys are gonna set what funding criteria, eligible, examples of eligible requests or non-eligible requests would be.
Are we ready for a motion?
It's a
Oh, you're
long
itching
one.
for it.
I am itching for it. Do it. I'm gonna do it.
Question for the public?
Yes, we do have to
Okay.
open it to the, thank you.
Yeah, I used to.
Good leader, good leader.
Did we have,
Um,
sorry.
Oh, I was asking, anyone has any comments from the public
Online?
online? Okay.
For the chat.
You go ahead. Yeah.
Blankly, I move to accept city staff's recommendation for the $40,000 of SIB funding.
I will second that.
That's great. So for those in approving this projects, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone against that or has any problem with this move? Going once, going twice. Okay, so as a board, we are approving this projects. And we agreed that we will dig in more details about the selection criteria for the pillar number 4 for the micro grants. So this will be part of our future meeting to discuss that in more details. So moving on, go ahead.
I can put it on a future agenda if you guys would like to talk about it in August, for you guys to set some time aside to look at the scope of that, and to look at eligibility requirements and what a potential rubric might look like, but for these other projects, city staff will go ahead and try and get
Sure.
started on them and update you guys as, you know,
Okay.
we reach the
I do
milestones.
have a question. I mean, going back to the first one, let's just say the air monitors, of course, that's kind of your thing. But I want to do more than just, you know, put a stamp on what we're doing. I want to be involved in some of this project. I want to have some hands-on. I don't know how that's even set up, but I just want to feel like I've contributed in a more meaningful way than
Sure, yeah.
say I'm here.
Okay, yeah, if you guys would like, I can look at maybe some more SIB involvement within these projects, and to see where you guys might fit in.
I would like it.
I think that would be cool to have the opportunity to go in and volunteer to either be a part of some of the installations or start a
I
part
would
of some
say
of the
that, yeah.
educational opportunities.
I will
The
put that
public.
on my
It
list.
works right along.
And maybe also we can invite this for schools, like a representative from every school, like maybe like few months from the installation, how they interacted with the students, how the message delivered, what are the learning lessons, are they happy with the sensors? Something as a feedback to the board, if this will help. Something like that. This is the first point. The second point, to make since I came with the idea of some micro grants, I will make it easy for us. I will draft like kind of a few pages for you about selection criteria, the work scope, stuff like that as a seed. So we can refine that and build on this. So I will share it with Liz and she can share it back to you. And maybe for the next meeting we are coming, but please like reply to her, you know, in advance so we can have the comments. And I will try to have it ready for you like mid of August so we can have time to review it. Okay.
My only comment with that, it would be the difference between applying for a grant on the watershed side with federal money, that's 20 pages long,
Yeah,
versus National Wild Turkey, Pheasants Forever, it's a 1 page.
Yes, yes.
80% of the scoring, you can look at the cover page, and then you're reading for the other 20% of scoring. How do we keep it simple? So that way we
Yes.
don't have to have professional grant writers.
yeah.
So,
No, for sure, yeah.
with submittable, I'm able to kind of build what an application will look like, and so we plan to keep it pretty simple, just kind of basic information like, you know, address information, name information, and then have them write a description of their project and where the costs are gonna go, and maybe have a budget. But we're planning on keeping it pretty simple, knowing these are individuals, and not trying to overburden them with, you know, super long grant application that you need to hire a grant writer for.
Right.
So I can also start working on that for you guys to just take a look at as well.
This will be great.
Well, I'm gonna suggest that Cindy Miles take a look at that application since she does a lot of grants and applies for a lot of grants, helps people with grants, teach people how to apply for grants. Right, Cindy?
She's smiling.
I do that work and I am happy to take a look at it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Outside of that, for SIB, since you guys did allocate the funding for educational materials, I'm just thinking about what brochures for SIB and Wichita Sustainability, how to advertise SIB or other boards or city efforts that you would like us to create educational materials on. So just start thinking about those kinds of things as well.
Topics, content as well.
I mean, I think, if we do get involved in some of these, like the air quality monitors and stuff like that, yeah, even having some information about just like pictures and just things of us being there and like marketing that, I think would help get a lot of awareness, like in real time of some of the current stuff.
What I see in my head is what I wanted to hand out for the Earth Day that Sid didn't have.
Okay.
Because I wanted to have something that said who we are and what we do and why we do
Yes.
it.
Right.
So as a general question, like, I know this is the last money we have it. So how we can source money in the future if we are successful with the micro grants or similar projects, how we can proceed for sourcing money, even like getting like 20K and start to make another campaign like that and to move on, keep the momentum moving forward. How we can source money?
If you want it from the city, you would have to go to city council, in order to get more money to make the case. So if this goes well, talk to your council members, see if you can bring up an item too, or just,
Sure,
you know,
yeah.
going and, you know, speaking at public meetings and just asking for more funding for SIB or for more sustainability projects as well.
You can also apply for grants.
Mhm.
You would be able to go through like as part of the local government in a way, and We would have to set that up as like an application through Public Works still, but if there's like a grant that you see is eligible for, I think probably local government would be the category you look at, but I guess there might be other categories you could see yourself as, but looking for that kind of grant funding could be another
That's
option.
great, yeah.
Well, wouldn't there be businesses who might be interested? I mean, they could do a donation? Is that,
I don't know
Conflict?
that there's any way that we can take a donation as. the
But a
city,
project, they
but-
might be able to.
But if you worked with a business on a project that was funded by them, I think as long as it's their money that they're spending.
So on other boards in the city, if somebody wants to build a park and a sidewalk to that park through their housing development they're building, they can definitely put the $250,000 up, and then the city approves it. And so I think going to your question, if you got a Cargill, a Coke, a Spirit, somebody that said, we would like to give the city $20,000 for sustainability projects to the micro grant, you just need to make sure that that is ear tagged very well where it needs to go to make it come through.
it would be nice that something like that could possibly happen, but I definitely would be over my head if I was talking to some of those people. But just, it's wishful thinking, somebody might say, hey, we have some money for sustainability. Like wishful, come on.
Yeah, yeah.
Someone's gotta be.
Yeah.
Go, yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to give you guys a recap on kind of a new item that came up yesterday. So Gary presented at the council workshop yesterday about a potential new ordinance that we'd like to bring forward to council about every other day watering. So just looking at a more permanent, sustainable option for our water source. So what this means basically is having something in effect all the time. So even out of stage 1 or stage 2 of the drought, we would want to have every other day watering, which would apply to all lawn watering, sprinkler devices, or spray irrigation. So what this means is if your address ends in an even number, mine ends in an even number, so I'd be able to water on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If your address ends in an odd number, you can water on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Or something along those lines, just making sure that we're still not watering every day, still being conscious, still bringing kind of that message that our conservation pool, what we have is not limitless. And so just really being cognizant of that. It would mean no watering on Sundays. So that would just be a permanent kind of no watering that day. There would be time restrictions. So currently it's from 10 to 8. This would only do no watering from 10 to 6. So as of right now with this every other day, with the way we intend it is you can hand water whenever you'd like still, but just not within that time frame. So if you do have, something that you would like to water more often than those 3 days, if you're hand watering, that's fine. We're just trying to target really like this irrigation systems. The estimated conservation be about 10 to 15% less than normal. So this could be up to 1 billion gallons a year of water saved. And this does not take the place of the drought response plan stages. So currently we're still in stage 2 that would take precedent over anything. This would just be if we're able to go down to a stage 1, which is just voluntary watering, or if we get out of the drought altogether.
How much longer do we have those 12 months?
6 months.
6 months left still?
Well, it's
Or was that last month and now it's 5 months?
Do the average.
Oh, you're asking about that.
Yeah.
So, and I would recommend watching the workshop yesterday for a full coverage of all this, but there is other proposals, but right now it would probably be March before the average would get down enough, even if it stayed full the rest of the year.
Yeah.
We got up to 90% to bring us out of stage 2. But there's also decision-making that can be made by the city manager on when to move us out of the drought stages if a certain threshold is reached.
What is the current level right now in Suni?
It is
Current level is right around,
4%.
well, the average, the
The
current
12
level is
month,
about
yeah.
97, 96,
But
97%.
what we base off our drought stages is that 12-month moving average, which is around 60
And it's coming
something %
in March, the average?
Coming, we don't know. I guess it depends on the precipitation.
Yeah, that's just the estimate if it doesn't go back down.
And we do also have to keep in mind evaporation during the summer. So as of right now, it is still currently going down just from the sheer fact of it being so warm.
Did they make any suggestions like for vegetable gardens or whatever, I would probably want to water my tomatoes on Sundays.
So you can hand water your tomatoes
Okay.
on Sunday, so
Okay,
there's no
just
restriction on
making
hand
sure.
watering. Yeah, but we're just trying to have like,
Okay.
just not a reckless irrigation system that's going on even when it's raining outside, because that's what it's set at, kind of a thing. So just trying to be,
I think our community needs to be more cognizant to how they use water
Mhm,
and just keeping this on all the time, no matter
right.
where we're at with how full Cheney
yeah.
is really important to
And
me.
that's the intent, and just like really education and keeping it on the forefront of people's minds. Just making sure that even if we do get out of the stage 2, even if we do see, higher precipitation, that we're still cognizant that what we're using and where we're grabbing it from is not a finite source, or is a finite source.
I think that there's so many other benefits that maybe either us or whatever can get out there through something like this ordinance, where, I mean, more frequent watering builds deeper root systems, like there's less chance of fungus in your yard. I mean, there's so many other benefits beyond, I mean, they're saving water, which is the most important, but maybe even people can realize that this can actually make their yard healthier.
Exactly, getting that deeper root system so you don't have to water as often.
Yep.
So this is something that actually Oklahoma City is already doing. They've been doing since 2013. So this graph, it might be a little bit hard for you guys to see, but this is when they started it, right here. And so this is their water usage, the black line, and the blue lines are the precipitation that they've received. So you can see there's a pretty big drop off from when they started it, and their usage has gone down. So we're hoping a similar trend will happen if we are able to get this
It's like a
approved.
third of the water.
I think Ethan, you estimated like 30% drop.
Oh, yeah, just looking at the
Yeah.
gallons per day per account on the left side of the graph, that was the number I was going off of.
And so they are a bigger city than us, so probably wouldn't be as great, but we are, hopeful. So similar to Oklahoma City, we would have variances. So if someone does want to reseed or sod, there would be kind of exceptions for this for a certain amount of days that they would be able to water, or, for reseeding it'd be 30 days, for sod it'd be 21 days, and then just special circumstances. So just also being aware that, there are other things that people want to do year round that we can take a look at and approve. Exceptions that do not require variance, so hand watering. So if you'd like to hand water on Sundays, feel free to do it. So you can, just not within 10 to 6. And then irrigation, using a non-potable water source. So just still same as currently, where our wells, people can still use well, they can use they can use reclaimed water. And then for enforcement, it'd be pretty similar to what we're doing now. So penalty schedule will be the same as the drought response system and the reported drought violation. So we do want to make this kind of an educational thing, continue to really hone in on that message of, trying to have a resilient water source. And then as part of this as well, we talked a little bit about it last month, but the water conservation rebate program will be revised to be able to include a rebate program for drought tolerant seeds and converting lawns, which will include, as you guys mentioned, providing educational resources on lawn care maintenance to reduce overwatering and over fertilizing habits. So really tackling the education portion of it as well. And that was the last slide I had on this item. Did you guys have any questions?
I wonder about the Energy Star because that no longer exists.
Actually, good news, it's included in latest budget in-house.
Really?
They outlined funding for it, so there's a chance.
Okay.
So why are wells never included?
Good question. That is because we do not have the water rights over that. Those are people's property owner water rights. So just because it's underneath their property, so we don't have any ability to regulate that. And we don't have any way to prove that it affects our Equisped's water source. It's just the local aquifer that's affected. It's not affecting where we're pulling drinking water from. So the state's unlikely to grant us any kind of authority over it to limit their watering with it.
Most sprinkler systems are only done to 30 feet around here, so we're hitting the first water table, not the aquifer,
Okay.
that's down about 150 feet.
Oh, I did forget to mention, that we are planning on bringing this kind of, it's gonna be an ordinance change, to council on August 19th. So we would, you know, up to you guys if you'd like to support it. So when we are presenting to council, just say, Sid, take a look at this. They like this. We want to move, you know, your support would be great. If you guys don't feel comfortable doing that right now, that's totally fine. But just an FYI that it will be going to
We're
council.
still developing it as well, because we
Yeah.
just got those comments from council on Tuesday, so.
Mhm.
I recommend watching that conversation as well.
I like that we can point to Oklahoma City as a city that's already been doing it for over a decade. That might pull over a lot of people who would be hesitant to do it, I think,
Agreed.
Mhm.
you know,
That's a good point.
And they still have green lawns there.
right? Field trip.
So do I, and I never water, but I don't care what comes up either.
Any more questions?
So, what did you say, like, if Sid wanted to endorse this,
You guys can make a motion, to endorse it. And so when we're presenting to council, we'll just let them know that you guys took a look at it as we presented it and you guys are in favor of it.
we would need to do that now?
I was gonna say, we have to do it now.
If you want to do it now, yes, this was the only time because the next meeting would be after the council day.
Oh.
You were getting around it in the backwards way.
Yeah.
You
I
were,
didn't want to pressure you guys to do anything you didn't want to do.
Ben blankly, I move.
Yeah, we have to do public comment.
Okay.
Excited, Ben, today.
I'm just.
on a roll.
Yeah.
Any public comments?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Ben blankly, I move that the Sustainability Integration Board endorses the proposed every other day watering city ordinance.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead.
I second.
Elizabeth, I don't think you can second.
I can't?
No.
That's a
You're,
shame.
you're,
What?
Why?
Second.
You're not officially on the board thing
Oh.
yet. The mayor has to
Oh,
approve you.
let's get on the mayor's case. Oh, my gosh.
I can second though.
Okay, thank you, Cindy.
I'm not, okay, can talk later. Okay, for those in approving that, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone against this move? Going once, going twice. So as a board, we are approving that move.
So you'll have a written statement from SIB that says we support this action.
It'll probably be a verbal statement
Okay.
that, we'll let Gary know that it was approved and then he's, gonna be the one presenting it. And so
Okay.
with anything we brought to council from you guys, like ACBG, we just mentioned, hey, this was
Okay.
looked at by the board, they approved it.
So did he wait until you talked about it before he left?
I think he left earlier than that, I'm not sure.
Yeah. I see him leave, I'm like, okay, what did he do?
Like the bat signal
Maybe
was
the
turned on.
Mayor's office and let them know, so I'm just waiting for her to make a motion at a meeting.
Maybe on the 19th, I'll go to public comment. Hey, wait a minute. This needs to happen at this meeting.
I knew there was something I forgot to mention. Actually, going back to staff updates, so we did get approval, if you guys remember. We had brought you guys a grant for $200,000 from KDHE that they wanted to give us, that they received. And that we were gonna get $200,000 in the top 5 cities, in Wichita would also be receiving funding. So we did get approval from the city manager to move forward to take that to council, which is actually coincidentally gonna be on that same council date of August 19th. Russell has agreed to talk on SIP's behalf, just because he has been here since the beginning of the community resiliency plan. So he agreed to speak at that one, so you will have representation at that specific meeting, but just an FYI, if you'd like to go and give public comment, that would be really helpful, just to let council know that you guys, that other community members are also behind approving and being able to allow us to use those funds.
Continue working on the community resilience plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
So just that August 19th, you know, they're both on the same day, so it'd be really easy to do both.
It's 9 AM though.
It might be 10 by the time they get to.
Yeah.
That's
That's the
true.
other problem.
I'll just be like, call me and I'll race over from work, so I don't have to take vacation.
So is a,
Yeah.
Okay, so we do have feedback on the decentralized wastewater
Oh, very
proposal.
good.
So I am going to read off the statement, and then you guys can choose how you would like to move forward. So thank you for your hard work in drafting this proposal. The exploration of innovative water treatment and reuse systems to address drought in Wichita will be key to fortifying our water supply against drought conditions. Wichita's Public Works and Utilities Department is currently exploring its own reuse study for the water discharge from the city's wastewater treatment plants into the Arkansas River. Based on the report and actions outlined, the best route for furthering this idea would be to identify a developer partner interested in implementing this type of decentralized system in a pilot area. The Wichita Area Builders Association would be a good contact to see what the appetite amongst builders is for testing out this type of development. There does not appear to be a need to direct involvement from PWU, Public Works and Utilities, to further this project toward its own goals, as a top-down approach with the city leading this would be counterintuitive to the decentralized nature of the project.
That was a long no.
I didn't sense.
All right, Ibrahim, you wanna go shake down WABA? Get a no from them too?
Well, I'm not sure, I was trying to get,
Yeah.
Problem is it drives into profit margins if you're talking to developers.
Yeah.
So unless you build an entire neighborhood out of people that are willing to pay an extra $20,000-$50,000 per house,
Mhm.
and now you're building a very niche neighborhood, but you're talking probably 150 houses to spread across.
Yeah.
So now you're 100-acre, 80-acre development. And are people willing to pay $500,000 for a $250,000, $300,000 house just to be green? You might be able to find somebody, but when we're talking about profits, and right now, most of the stuff coming out of MABC
Yeah.
is building to the lowest standard code allowed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's frustrating.
Wow, okay.
yeah.
So just let me loop this back to them. So since you have a communication, what they are looking for, what are the projects the city may host it or adopt it, Like you mentioned before about the RO for water treatment. So are you looking for something like so what is the city's scope for the water?
For the reuse study that we're looking at
Yeah.
right now.
So we need to make sure when we, as a board members here, when we propose something or pitching something to the city, we need to make sure we have a boundary for our innovations, a boundary for our ideas, right? So right now, we should, like my goal by end of this year, should have like a clear plan for waste reduction, for water, even not approved, but something documented, right? So as a board members, we documented that, we provided that to the city, but we need to provide something within the scope. So as a board member, we need to understand what is the waste reduction and water boundary. As a board member, so when we propose something, should be within the boundary of the city. So we need to know that. I'm not looking for the answer now, but we may be looping this back to them. And so we can know what we need to do next.
Yeah, I would say at least on, in terms of water use, that we're working with CDM Smith, a contractor on that, and they're starting the communication side of that. We're reaching out to different stakeholders, throughout the community, businesses, hospitals, other different business leaders and executives, but, I would say they're looking at different things around industrial use, around different times of indirect and direct potable reuse, but, I don't know that there's any way for us to switch to like a decentralized system specifically, just because it's a big change from
I know,
the current way the utility is set up. I don't know if it's easy for me to say right now, like what the bounds would be within that study, because that's part of what the study is doing is figuring out what those bounds are.
Yes, yes.
There is supposed to be some kind of plan as a result of it at the end of this year. And then we'll, I think, continue building off of that plan in the following year with them, but there should be some form of a draft at some point at the end of the year. And you'll start hearing communications about it, I'm sure, as we move forward.
Okay.
So combining the two thoughts, a lot of cities in Nevada, the deserts of Utah, New Mexico, have utilizing wastewater recirculating into the
Yes.
purification system.
Yeah.
And it's been one of my beliefs that unless you're a mountain town we're always just purifying somebody else's sewage water for our drinking water.
Mhm.
And we understand that through studies that what we're dumping out from our wastewater treatment is cleaner than what we're pulling out of Cheney. Why is it clean enough for the next neighborhood south of us
Mhm.
to use as drinking water out of Caw Lake? But it's not clean enough for us to re-purify and reuse ourselves. And I think one of the hiccups we had discussed several months ago with this
Yeah.
is the state laws.
Yes, you are
That we can
absolutely
pull out
right.
of a river, we just can't pipe it right
Look
back
it back,
in.
yes.
Right.
But in theory, we could pipe it 5 miles upriver, dump it, and have our input down here.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Just in a body of water.
why, if there's workarounds such as that, that we could pump our treated wastewater right back up to Cheney
Mhm.
and recycle it, and that's legal, can we not just connect the pipes?
Yeah, I see the point, I agree. I see the point.
But Ibrahim, kind of, I know kind of where you were getting at, like, what is the scope of the SIB? What are we supposed to be doing?
Exactly.
And it kind of hits on the thing that I've been thinking about with a lot of our city advisory boards, especially when diagram was paused,
Mhm,
is that we're advisory only.
mhm.
And so even the dabs have a tiny bit more power than every other advisory board, because they can like stop a zoning change,
Kinda,
kinda.
yeah.
But every other advisory board, it's just
Toothless.
us, it's toothless, yeah, we're just meeting to talk about stuff.
Sure.
So, and I don't think that's ever, like, it feels weird to like be working really hard on a volunteer basis on things, and then you hand them off and it's just a big, sorry, no. It's really disheartening. And this isn't the first time that I've served on a
Sure.
board, a city advisory board with this exact same, end result. And so I don't know if there's a solution, but to answer your question,
Yes.
really, it's like, we are advisory only.
Yeah, I got the
And that
point,
is
I got it.
100%. So like, we can think big, we can think small, doesn't matter.
And I can tell you from being on a DAB for many years that the DAB really doesn't have any pull when it comes to zoning cases. And I can also tell you that as a member of the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission, because I hear many times where a DAB has voted in a particular way and the Planning Commission votes in the complete opposite way of what the DAB has voted. And I see that over and over. And it's really kind of unfortunate. Because I think the planning commission should be considering our comp plans, our neighborhood plans, all those different types of plans, and looking at best land uses as opposed to looking at what's best for the developer.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm an outlier.
Yeah.
Well, aren't most of the MAPC members developers?
Developers, architects, real estate, yeah,
Wow.
that
Yeah.
kind of,
Yeah.
and I'm none of those. I'm just somebody that's trying to look at what I think is best for the area that we're looking at a zoning case on, and look at property rights and those people that currently live there and whether or not it's the best use to move into a neighborhood. So
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a little disheartening, but
I would
Sorry.
say no. Why? As I usually part of my job before send the proposals,
Right.
Some of my proposals get millions of dollars already now commercialized. Some of them no. And we say no, sometimes not on the right time, right? Usually make a decision based on the current information. So this year we are good on the water, right? So, but at least with my point, when I document something, I love to keep the city and the board informed about the solutions, right? So maybe like years from now, say, oh, someone did talk about decentralized concept. Let's dig back to that. This is my point, I believe we did a great job. I appreciate all the feedback, the time we had. And I believe the city is aware of that project now, or this proposal. If they need to get back to this later, they have something, right? So, yeah.
If there is a project you guys would like to work within the, like, in the future, another proposal.
Oh, yeah.
Before you develop that, we can also try and bring as much information as possible.
I
So-
thought you did that from the meeting minutes as,
Yeah, so we do try to give you guys as
Okay.
much information, so if you wanna focus on waste reduction,
Sure,
we can
yeah.
kind of look at what's already being done and seeing where you guys can work through that as well.
sure, yeah, yeah.
So just, it's up to you guys to kind of make it what you guys want it and what you guys wanna focus on, and we're here to, you know, gather that information and really talk about the city processes, and, you know, from there, that's where you guys take it to see what avenue you would like to go up.
I believe for the rest of the year, we have August and September. We might be busy with the micro grants, right? So this will take time from us to dig more, see what is the frame of the work, getting the proposal, and after that, did we agree to have December or no?
So you guys voted to not have a December and to potentially not have November as
So
well.
we have only like 3 months left in this year.
Mhm.
So 2 months mainly for the micro grants, right? And maybe the last month, we just summarize what we achieved during the year. Recommendation to the city or whatever we approved on.
If we're
any
doing
project.
micro grants, we'll probably have to meet in November,
Hmm,
finalize the grants.
this is a good point, yes, all right,
It may not be the third Tuesday or
Okay.
Wednesday,
okay,
but we're gonna have to meet sometime. I'm just foreseeing that we're gonna approve this out. They're gonna have 60 days to apply, which is a short window.
got it, got it.
So up to you guys to set that timeline. The way we want to do is we just want the money to be allocated by the end of the year, which you guys are kind of allocating it now. And so when you would like that, once we get everything set up and the scope
Sure,
set
yeah.
up, if you guys would like it to open at the beginning of the year, if you would like to open it at the end of the year, I think Ethan and I were talking about opening it in November, December, and then, you know, you guys reviewing in that first meeting in January.
You mentioned before we have to spend the money before end of the year.
Allocate the money before the
Allocate,
end of the
okay.
year. Yeah, so start spending it before, basically, but not, just like with this one, you know, when depending on when those grants actually go out, that money is not gonna go out until after the awardees are chosen as well. So you're not, you don't have to give out the money before the end of the year.
Sure. So I believe giving that, we would be busy in the next few months, as you know.
I think
So we should focus on that and try to make sure be successful for the micro grants. And as Jason mentioned, we may start to reach out later. After that, oh, we did help these communities, we did help these people, and we need more money to keep going based on the results came from the first round of the micro grants, something like that. Yeah. So thank you so much for giving us this feedback. So any questions about that, the city feedback on the next concept from the public or board members? Okay. So moving on, so the last item we have is mainly about the chair or the vice chair, if we need to make any new selections. I personally would love to keep serving the board members, but if someone wants to see something different, I'm very flexible.
I will say, I did ask Russell because he wasn't gonna be here, and I think he skipped over that part in my email, so I did not get a response, so up to you guys if you'd like to just continue to vote him since he's not here.
Yes, yes.
Is Russell our vice chair?
Yes, Russell's the
Okay.
vice chair, yes. and
I
Ethan
didn't
is-
know that.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, since we
Yes,
did get new
traveling for
members,
family, but yeah.
since
go
we
ahead.
did get new members in March, we do have to vote, again, just to make sure everyone got a voice in who the chair and vice chair was going to be.
And remind me, we vote yearly on chair and vice chair?
So as of right now, technically you do because of the way the ordinance is set up and we get new board members every year. I'm hoping to change that. So hopefully next year we won't have to do this again. But because it is supposed to be more of a 2-year term thing. Yeah, but since we did get new members and we're gonna get new members again in March, if the ordinance situation isn't changed, we will be voting again in the summer.
Oh, I tend to volunteer too much, so I'm going to decline to offer up chair and vice chair for Sid. Even though I'm ended up chair of transit again, actually, it's all said and done, so.
Okay.
Well, we can still appoint Russell even though he's not here.
You could.
Yeah, we can do that.
And you said you're still willing to be the chair?
Yes, I said that.
And someone would just need to make a motion.
Dan, you've been doing a good job for that.
Nominate Ibrahim as chair and Russell as vice chair.
Thank you.
I'll second. Let's get this done.
So, for those in approving the selection, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone doesn't like Ibrahim or Russell?
Yeah.
Anyone against that?
Russell can't talk, so.
Yeah, put him in charge.
Send him an email.
It's just like, congratulations, and no other detail. Read the meeting minutes.
Okay, anyone from the people on the virtual platform? Going once? Twice? Okay, as a board members, we approving this selection. And thank you guys for keeping your trust in us, yeah.
Okay.
It looks like this meeting is getting to the end, so we'll open now the comments for the public. If someone need to discuss any points or thanks for coming.
I'm a document, didn't catch that context, I cannot.
Yes, she
Yeah.
cannot provide.
Yeah.
Antonio, do you want to say anything about the environment?
It's a sign. What are you talking about?
Yeah, now's your chance. You can say, you can
He's not,
say
he can't even hear
the
you.
environment in Wichita, anything you want.
Change has to stop.
Which one?
Yeah.
Climate change has to be stopped. That's
Okay.
pretty,
I like
pretty
that.
legit,
It's going in the minutes.
right?
There you go.
Okay, looks like we are good for this meeting. So I'm going to adjourn this meeting and thanks for coming. And looking forward to the next meeting.
Thank you.
Adios. all.
Hey, Lisa, before you go on maternity leave, we would love it if you guys would come back and talk, because I always love your talks at Nurses
Oh,
Council.
okay.
When is your last day?
Yeah.